Hello and welcome to this video. In this video, I wanted to show you how you can easily embroider on a stocking. In this tutorial, I did create my own stocking and I'll link the pattern I used below, but you can purchase one from a store if you want to. I would just avoid any that have the furry stocking top to them. You want to use something that's just linen or cotton or canvas, something that's kind of a durable, natural material. So this is my finished stocking, and I have a couple of different layers in this, but it's not so thick that I won't be able to stitch through it. So I just use cotton fabric and kind of a lightweight canvas for the outside of this, and I'm just gonna choose to use some ecru embroidery floss here, something that's not completely white, but I felt like it would give enough contrast to where you can see the lettering. And I just have I think it's a size 3 or 5 embroidery needle, because I'm going to go ahead and use all 6 strands for this project. And then you'll just need some embroidery scissors. I'm going to go ahead and just use the water soluble pen. Another thing that is helpful to have on hand, but you don't necessarily have to do it this way, is some tape. I'm going to tape the line that I want to put the lettering on to make sure that I have it straight, because it can be a little bit tricky to hand draw lettering. So the first thing I'm gonna do is go ahead and tape where I want the lettering to be. I think I'm gonna make it pretty big, so I'll probably keep about this much space. So I'll probably put the tape right along this line here, so I have a guide when I am designing the lettering that I want. I'm just gonna go ahead and set this here, and that is where the bottom of my lettering will be. So I'm gonna go ahead and hand draw this on, but I did also wanna mention, because lettering can be kind of tricky, you could use something like stick and stitch stabilizer and print out your lettering so you don't have to wing it on top of the fabric. But if you do mess up, this is water soluble and you can just dab it and let it dry for a second and you can go back over it. So I'm gonna go ahead and just do a freehand of this, but if you want to add some lettering in Canva and then print it out on the stick and stitch, that is an easier way to do it in case you are a little nervous about doing the lettering. I'm gonna keep it pretty simple. So I drew on the lettering and I do like the way it looks, and I kind of accidentally didn't get it quite as centered as I want it to be. I had an idea to add a little bit of holly leaves right here so it is centered with the design. So I think what I'm gonna end up doing is just a few holly leaves right here and then go from there. And I think that's pretty cute and that looks pretty centered. So I'm going to pretty much follow the lettering. I think this looks pretty good. There's a few little mistakes here and there, but this will wash off. So if you do make a minor mistake, you can kind of go back over it. If you make a major mistake, you can wash it off. But if you're in a time crunch and you need to, you can just kind of go back over it with your marker and fix the minor mistakes. So you can use an embroidery hoop and just kind of place this in the hoop if you have enough room to do that. I have interfacing in this stocking, so this one is pretty stiff, so I feel like the fabric is stable enough to where I don't really need a hoop, and I think it'll just be easier for me to just stitch it the way it is. So I'm gonna use 6 strands and I'm just tying a knot at the end, and I'm just gonna go ahead and back stitch this. But you could use any other kind of outline stitch you wanted to use. You could use the chain stitch, you could use a stem stitch or a split stitch. And I actually have a whole video with some pointers on how to embroider lettering very smoothly. So I'll also link that below if you want to check that out before you get started, just to make sure that you are aware of some of the tips that will help you make your lettering look better. But I'm just gonna go with a back stitch and go ahead and stitch this lettering with my kind of off-white color here. It can be a little tricky to get in there, so I wouldn't recommend making a stocking any smaller than this. unless you stitch it before you sew it. I was a little nervous about getting the positioning off because I'm not the best seamstress when it comes to using a machine. So I wanted to wait to sew this together before I did it. But you could do either way. If you're really good at sewing, then by all means, it might be easier to sew this on the liner first before you assemble something. But also if you just purchased your own stocking just from the store, then you'll definitely want to just do it this way and not disassemble it. That would make it a lot more complicated. So I am pretty much done with this strand of thread, so I just wanted to show you how to end stitches, especially on something that might move around or could potentially come out. So a lot of the times when you're working the hoop, you can just like tuck this underneath, which you could do, but since every now and then sometimes you wash textiles, I think it's better if you secure it more firmly. So you can either tie two tails of the thread together, but one thing that I like to do when I only have one is to tuck the existing tail underneath the stitches, but not pull through all the way. So you're just gonna pull through until you have a little loop, and I take my needle off. And then with this loop, I take my hands and I pull the tail through, again, only halfway, and it makes another loop. And then I do it one more time and pull it all the way through, and then you have a secured knot and it's not gonna fall out. So that is the way I like to end stitches, especially for like clothing or textiles. I finished the lettering, so now I'm gonna go ahead and do the holly leaves. I picked out two colors here for that, and I think I'm just gonna do some French knots and then maybe, I don't know, maybe some satin stitches for the little holly leaves, and that'll be done. So I've just finished embroidering the stocking, and now I'm going to go ahead and wash off the stabilizer, take this tape off. If you're using water soluble anything like the stabilizer or the marker, it is advisable to actually rinse this and not just dab it dry, because I've noticed that if you do just dab this to remove the marks, they will temporarily be removed, but then some of the marker will come back. So it's just easier if you rinse it off and just let it dry for a day or so. So I'm gonna do that, and I will pop back in and show you the finished product.